Alright guys, in this video you're going to learn how to solve quadratic inequalities. They're different from equations because obviously they're not equal, they're inequalities. So what you need to do is take the notes that were given to you, fold them in half, and you're going to attach these to page 58 of your notebook. You need to make sure that you record page 58 on your table of contents. At any time in the video, you can stop so you can catch up, you can go backwards so that you can hear it again. Watching this video is like watching me teach you in class, except you can pause me, you can stop me, and you can rewind me. So you need to pay careful attention. If you don't hear, you need to back it up and watch it again. First thing I have for you on your notes, you will see some steps. And in these steps are exactly what you need to do in order to determine the solutions to quadratic inequalities. So step 1, you need to determine the solutions. And for that, you're going to use the quadratic formula. So your first blank is solutions. Step 2, you're going to plot these points on a number line. And you're actually going to draw a number line and graph the points. Next, you're going to pick one point on the left, one in the middle, and one to the right of the points that you found in steps 1 and 2. And finally, you need to test each region. In order to do this, you plug in the value into the quadratic inequality that you started with. If you come up with a true statement, that means that this region is part of the solution and should be shaded. If what you get is a false statement, then that's not part of the solution and should not be shaded. So let's get started with example 1. I'm going to get the paper lined up just right, and I'm going to try to zoom in just a little bit. So example 1 is x squared plus 2x minus 8. You have to solve using the quadratic formula. If you don't remember those, you need to go back to your quadratic formula notes, and you need to look at how to do that. We know that to solve by taking it for the quadratic formula, we need to get everything on one side equal to 0, and in this case we have greater than or equal to 0. Doesn't matter, we just have a greater than or equal to symbol instead of an equal. So what we want to do is we want to start out by picking out A, B, and C. A is the term in front of x squared. A is 1, B is a positive 2, and C is a negative 8. At this point, we simply plug into our formula. We say x equals, it's going to be a fraction, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I leave parentheses, especially in case I have negatives. So I'm going to plug in those values. B is 2, A is 1, C is negative 8, A is 1. As we learned in class, we're going to now use our calculator to make this easier for us. So at this point, you want to get your calculator. You want to make sure that you do N over D button first. Now you type in what you see, negative parentheses squared, plus, because you can't do plus and minus at the same time, square root 2 squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Hit enter. 2 is your first answer here. So I'm going to move my calculator out of the way. I found out that x is equal to 2. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to have another answer, and I do that by bringing my calculator back. I'm going to select my quadratic formula I typed in, go to the plus. In your formula, you see a plus and minus. Therefore, I turn this to a subtraction. not a negative, a subtraction. Hit enter, and I find that my other x value is negative 4. You have now completed step 1. Step 2 is to plot these on a number line. So I'm going to draw my number line. 0 is in the middle. 1, 2, there's positive 2. Here's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Because this says or equals to, I'm going to have a closed-in circle for each of these. Now, we have completed step 2. I'm going to pick a point to the left, to the middle, and to the right of these 2 points. I'm going to start with the middle because that's the most obvious. Here's your 2 points. Anything in the middle will work. You could pick 1. You could pick 0. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. 1.5 is technically in the middle. Negative 2.75 is in the middle, and you could pick any one of those points. I personally like to pick x equals 0 because that means my x's will be 0 and they'll disappear. Now I'm going to look to the right. Here's 2. What's to the right of 2? 3, 4, 5. I like to pick easier numbers to work with. A lot of times I pick 5s and 10s. I can pick the number exactly to the right. I could pick a decimal, but I don't want to do that. I choose to pick x equals 4. You could pick 5. A friend could pick 15. Plug it in. We're still seeing if it's true or false. I have to the right. I have to the middle. I need to pick to the left. I didn't leave much room, so I'm going to give myself a little more room to extend my number line. What I find to the left is negative 5, negative 6, negative 7. I'm going to pick negative 5. I have completed step 3. I picked a point. I picked it because I wanted those points. You could pick different points. Now, step 4. We're going to test each region. There are 3 regions. To the left, in the middle, to the right. I'm going to plug into my original. I will take x squared plus 2x minus 8 is greater than or equal to 0. Since I picked negative 5, I plug in negative 5. I'm going to type this in my calculator. I get my calculator. I type it exactly like I see it. I see what I come up with. I get 7. So I write 7 down. And I ask myself, is it true that 7 is greater than or equal to 0? That is true. If you look back at your instructions, true means this is part of the solution and should be shaded. This was picked on the left side, so we will shade to the left. That means everything to the left of negative 4 is included. I'm going to test x equals 0. I'm going to plug back into the original. For every x, I will now put 0. So I plug in 0. I grab my calculator. Once again, I plug it in. I do 0 squared plus 2 times 0 minus 8. I receive negative 8 greater than or equal to 0. And I ask myself, is it true that negative 8 is greater than or equal to 0? And the answer is no. That is false. If the answer is no, then it is not part of the solution. I do not shade it. Finally, I'm going to check the right side of my 2 boundary points. I picked 4, so I'm going to use 4. If I had picked something different, I would use that number. So I have 4 squared plus 2 times 4 minus 8 greater than or equal to 0. I plug it in my calculator. 4 squared plus 2 times 4 minus 8 gives me an answer of 16. So I ask myself, is 16 greater than or equal to 0? And the answer is yes. This is a true inequality, a true statement. Therefore, it is part of my answer, so I shade to the right. Because 4 is on the right of my boundary, I shade to the right. Now, you may think you're finished. You're not quite finished because you have not written your final answer. In the previous video that you watched a video about how to write your solutions when you were looking at a number line. Your two key points are -4 and 2. You have not shaded in between. Therefore, you have two separate pieces. This side, you start with x. All of your x's are less than your -4. So you know you're going to be less than. Because that is a filled-in circle, you are equal to -4. And you have a second piece to your graph. You have this side. From +2, bigger. Everything that is greater than. So x is also greater than or equal to, because it is filled in circle, 2. This is the final answer. This is what I am looking for. The rest is the work that gets you there. Now we're going to look at example 2. What do you notice that is different about example 2? Well, the first thing I notice is I don't have or equal to. So that means I'll have open circles. So what I want you to do is I want you to try this and see what you get.